Welcome to the press conference on 2023 policy address in relation to transport and logistics as well as the economy. We have with us Mr. Che Chin-wan, Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Mr. Lam Sai-hong, Secretary for Transport and Logistics, and Principal or Permanent Secretaries Ms. Vivian Lau for the Environment and Ms. Mabel Chan, PS for Transport and Logistics, as well as Ms. Janice Che, Permanent Secretary for Environment and Ecology. We'll first hear from Mr. Che, Secretary for Environment and Ecology. I will now give you information about the initiatives under our Bureau. We are the EEB, Environment and Ecology Bureau. We cover environment and food safety. Well, we want to achieve carbon neutrality in 2050. Developing zero-carbon energy source is an important part. We can make use of hydrogen because it can be used in transportation, power generation, and energy storage construction site equipment. In order to expand the application of hydrogen locally, we will formulate a strategy of hydrogen development in Hong Kong in the first half of next year. This will also start our preparatory work for legislative amendment on the production, storage, transportation, and use of hydrogen fuel. We intend to introduce the bill in 2025 to the LegCo. In terms of green transport, in the first half of next year, we will formulate a citywide green transformation roadmap and timetable to phase out diesel buses and LPG taxis. We have not forgotten about electric barrier-free transportation. Under the New Energy Transportation Fund, we will allocate $50 million to subsidize the purchase of wheelchair-accessible electric taxis. We'll also expand the charging network. Our goal is that by mid-2027, the number of public and private parking spaces with charging points will be increased to 200,000. And in order to expedite the expansion of private charging network, we will marketize the free charging services before the end of the year. In addition, we will refine land lease condition of petrol stations to promote retrofitting of charging points. In the long run, we want them to be converted to green energy refuel station. In terms of energy conservation and carbon reduction, well, building energy consumption accounts for 90% of our total energy consumption. So energy conservation by buildings is very important. Well, by the end of the year, we will consult the relevant stakeholders on the amendment of Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance to expand the scope of regulation to more types of buildings. To enhance the government's carbon management, we will extend carbon audit to government infrastructure by phases and will also cover freshwater pumping stations, sewage treatment plants, and street lighting. In terms of waste reduction and recovery, next year we'll introduce a bill to establish common legislative framework covering different products to speed up the producer responsibility schemes. And our goal is that in 2025, 5 products, namely plastic beverage containers, beverage cartons, electric vehicle batteries, tires, lead acid batteries will be covered by the scheme. In the policy address last year, there was an 18-month food waste collection trial scheme in public residential housing estates, PRH estates, launched. Well, as at September this year, we have installed a smart food waste collection service. We have achieved this 6 months before the target. And on the 1st of April 2024, we have the municipal waste charging. So we will provide more of these bins in PRH estates. In a policy as addressed last year, there was the proposal of regulating proper handling of recyclables in residential buildings. Early next year, we will introduce a bill to require property management companies of residential buildings or complexes with 100 units or more to collect common recyclables separated by households for further handling. We'll also increase the number of green and community recycling stores at 50 PRH estates. In terms of nature conservation, we'll update the Hong Kong biodiversity strategy and action plan. And in the northern metropolis, we'll establish the Sampo Shu Wetland Conservation Park. We'll enhance the quality of the environment and biodiversity in the northern metropolis. Will also introduce modernized sustainable aquaculture. In terms of agriculture and fish, we will continue to promote its development. We'll launch the blueprint for the sustainable development of agriculture and fisheries. We'll accord priority to a number of measures that includes private-public partnership for some sites in agricultural park in Kutong South, for the establishment of technology agricultural park. And in Manshan Saisha Road Garden, we'll have our first modernized urban farming. We introduced the concept of harvest to sale and set up a modern hydroponic farms and stores on rooftop of public markets that are suitable. We'll also promote leisure farming. There are also other measures to promote leisure fishing in other areas. They include multi-story modern livestock farms and the installation of a new deep-sea cages in 4 new fish culture zones for rent by the trade. On environmental hygiene, within this year, we will introduce a bill to the LegCo to amend the law to prohibit feeding of wild pigeons, because we are very concerned about environmental hygiene. We'll also look into enhancing penalty for feeding wild animals. Recently, we have just raised the fixed penalty level for offences relating to environmental hygiene and obstruction. We will soon start public consultation on the second phase of legislative amendment. We'll work with various sectors to fight against rodent infestation. We'll formulate a new rodent infestation rate. There are also other measures. Namely, within 3 years, we will, at 400 rural locations, install new enclosed waste collection facilities. We'll also expedite renovation of public toilets under the FEHD. We will start the work on 430 public toilets in the coming 5 years. In terms of public markets, we will start construction of new public markets as well as continue with the market modernization program. We reckon that in 2027 and 2028, we will be able to commission the Tinshui Wai public market and the Zhonghuan O public market. Regarding streamlining licensing regime for food businesses, we aim to assist the food and beverage trade. We'll streamline the licensing regime of food businesses. In the first quarter of next year, we'll launch the Easy Guide to apply for food licenses. And we will also propose legislative amendments to use composite permit to cover multiple restricted food. In the first half of next year, we'll streamline measures that includes expansion of the license first inspection later professional certification system to general restaurants. We'll also have more lenient licensing conditions for commercial agriculture farm with cooked product. We'll also launch the e-licenses for all food businesses applications. On food safety, next year we will amend the law to update the standard of preservatives and antioxidants in food. Next year, we'll also review the standard of sweeteners in food. These are the salient points of the work of our Bureau. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zhang.
We will now have the Secretary for Transport and Logistics give his presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to talk about the measures of the Transport and Logistics Bureau set out in the policy address to strive for a vibrant economy. Transport infrastructure potential has to be unleashed. We also have to strengthen our connectivity with other GBA cities. We will have a Hong Kong major transport infrastructure development blueprint that would include enhanced 3 railways and 3 major roads proposals. 3 intermediate stations at Northeast Chun Wan, Northeast Kwai Chung, and Chun King Circuit will be added to the Central Rail Link. Also, 2 railways and 1 major road will be added for the new towns in the eastern part of the Northern Metropolis, including the Northern Link Eastern Extension, Northeast New Territories Line, and Northern Metropolis Highway, New Territories North New Town section. We will also have a smart and green mass transit system in East Kowloon. The East Kowloon Smart and Green Mass Transit systems will facilitate people getting to Choi Wan, going from there to Shenli, Shen'an, and so on, and it will facilitate connection to Anderson Road. For the Kai-Tak system, it will go to Kai-Tak Sports Park and Cruise Terminal, increasing the connectivity. As for the system in Hongshouqiu/Hachun, it will connect to Yunlong South Development as well as the light rail and the public transport interchange. We are going to implement smart and green mass transit systems. As I said earlier, we have drawn reference to Sky Shuttle, bus rapid transit, and autonomous rail rapid transit. These technologies are suitable to be used in Hong Kong. Our next steps are that we will invite suppliers and operators to submit expressions of interest within next year to finalize tender conditions and other details. Last year, the international airport is the busiest in the world. We have seen a gradual recovery in throughput. The daily passenger throughput is expected to reach its pre-pandemic levels next year, and in the first 9 months of this year, it has reached the 70% of the pre-pandemic level, and the number of destinations has reached 80% of the pre-pandemic levels. In relation to International Aviation Hub, we will continue to promote the development of the 3-runway system. There are also other facilities to be completed, including the Advanced Logistics Center, as well as the expansion of the DHL Central Asia Hub. The Airport Authority will continue to promote the sea air intermodal cargo transshipment mode and will complete the first phase of the logistics park in Dongguan. Starting from August, we already have the Airport City Link commence, and there are already shuttle bus services between Hong Kong and Macau. And it will then allow people to fly via Zhuhai, Hong Kong, allowing seamless transition between mainland and the world. We are also trying to enhance visitors' experience. Next year, we'll have the smart lane system and smart conveyance system to enhance the speed of procedural matters. We will also have automated mover systems on the Airport City Link. This will be extended to Tung Chung Town Center in future. We are also trying to make the airport a green and low-carbon one. We will promote the use of sustainable aviation fuel in Hong Kong by airlines. We will continue to monitor the development trend of SAF to formulate forward-thinking measures. As for International Shipping Center, we will promulgate an action plan on maritime and port development strategy. We will coordinate departments and industry stakeholders to promote the development of services in an industry-oriented manner. We will also provide tax concessions. The Invest Hong Kong will try to recruit more shipping commercial principals and overseas shipping companies to set up or expand their operations in Hong Kong. The 7th International Maritime Week will be held next month. We will promote both online and offline that Hong Kong is a destination for maritime services. We will also capitalize on Hong Kong's international position in maritime arbitration. We are one of the 4 designated venues by BIMCO. We hope that more will make use of Hong Kong as a springboard to get to the mainland market. We will also strengthen collaboration in the Greater Bay Area to form a logistics cluster. We will also try to explore the possibility of making Hong Kong a green fuel bunkering center. To meet the needs of green methanol of the trade, we will provide green methanol studies. We will include that in the action plan that we will promulgate next year to come up with the supply means and use of such fuel. We will also prepare the relevant technical studies. We will publish the action plan on modern logistics development next week to promote high quality and sustainable development of the logistics industry to meet the short, medium, and long-term development needs of the industry. We will have a logistics cluster. In future, we will first test it out in Hung Shui Q Ha-Chun New Development Area in a 37-hectare land. The relevant studies will be commenced this year. I want to now talk about northbound travel for Hong Kong vehicles. It is a breakthrough measure. We have received so far approximately 28,700 applications. About 21,000 of them were approved. During the Chung Yung Festival long weekend, we have a record-breaking 4,200 vehicles that have made use the HZMB to get to and from the mainland, get to the mainland. We can see that there is an increasing flow of vehicles of the bridge to facilitate citizens. We have implemented measures such as specific vehicle examination centers, and we have enhanced travel booking time slots from 6 to 4. We have also enhanced the management system of relevant car parks in Guangdong to recognize Hong Kong vehicle registration marks. We have also provided videos on driving safety, clearance, and so on for Hong Kong vehicle owners and drivers. We believe it would make it more convenient and it will make citizens feel at ease and safer. In the policy address, the Chief Executive talked about the previous measures, but has something deeper as well. We will definitely strive to make a more comprehensive transport network for citizens. We will also leverage on our unique advantages to increase our competitiveness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lam. Now the floor is open for question and answers. Please use the microphone we gave you. Identify your media organization first. I'm from RTHK. First question for the TLB. In relation to the East Kowloon alignment earlier, there was a discussion that during the morning and evening peak, the passenger volume will be higher. How does it help with the distribution of traffic? And you also said that, well, the tender price has reached a certain level that is kind of like at 1/10. Are you inclined to use these tender documents? And after the Chongyong Festival, there was a queue for vehicles coming back. So in relation to traffic going to Zhuhai, can the capacity be increased? Can drivers and vehicles be inspected in tandem? Will you talk to the Ministry of Commerce about this? Another question in relation to niches. 420,000 niches are in the pipeline. How long would it last? The scrapping of the Sandy Ridge project, will it meet long-term demand? What's the discussion with local stakeholders? A question about electric vehicles. Number of electric vehicles and its proportion to charging points. What's the distribution of these charging points? Can you give me more information? I will answer questions about transport infrastructure and northbound travel for Hong Kong vehicles. In relation to the East Kowloon alignment, the goal is to help passengers going uphill in Kwun Tong. The system will enable commuters to go to both sides. One side is Yau Tong, the other is Choi Hung. Commuters will be connected to the MTR system to go to other places. It's a convenient transport system for residents living in Kwun Tong. Well, there are many different versions about the project price of the East Kowloon project. Different systems have different features. Some will have a stronger capacity to climb uphill, whereas others may have a bigger passenger capacity. We look at the applicability of these systems in Hong Kong. Further studies are required. Our work in the next stage we will send out invitations of expressions of interest to service providers. We will solicit their views on the East Kowloon project before we start the tender exercise. For the northbound travel for Hong Kong vehicles, it started on the 1st of July. Over long holidays, say the National Day, the long weekend over Chongyong Festival, there was heavy traffic at certain boundary control points. We'll closely liaise with the authorities at these boundary control points to see if we can introduce enhancement measures of the facilities and the formalities. We aim to enhance the experience of users of the northbound travel for Hong Kong vehicles. Now we'll hear from Mr. Tse. First, about the Sandy Ridge project. The government has carefully considered supply of niches. A decision has been made to change the project at Sandy Ridge to a logistic park to tie in with the development of the northern metropolis. As to whether supply is enough and how long will existing supply last, Currently, we have 450,000 niches and an increase by 200,000. So Sandy Ridge is not the largest supply of niches. We have 420,000 niches in projects that have already been decided, so we will have more than that. We have about 50 to 60,000 people passing away every year. Over the past decade, the number of users of green burial has increased. A decade ago, there were about 3,000 people choosing green burial, but now we have 9,000 people, an increase by more than threefold. And that is over 15% of the number of deceased. We reckon that the trend will continue to rise. Families can share one niche. So in the pipeline, we have enough to last over or beyond 2040. We continue to identify locations for construction of columbarium at sites near cemeteries. It's suitable, and there is little resistance. Our general direction in the long run is to promote green burial. The other question is about e-vehicle and charging points. We have over 6,000 public charging points. Starting from 2021, we have changed GPA exemptions for newly constructed car parks. There should be provision of sufficient charging points before they get GPA concessions. So we have over 30,000 parking spaces with charging facilities. So at public car parks, we have over 36,000 charging spaces with charging spaces. There are 60,000 e-vehicles in Hong Kong, so I think the ratio is 2 to 1, which is not bad. For all government parking spaces, we will add more charging points. There will be about 7,000 under the charging, easy charging program. There will be another 140,000. And as I've said, for newly constructed parking spaces, they will have to have charging points. We aim to marketize charging facilities in the private sector. We see that some companies have done it, say Lingrit and the housing authorities have entered the market. There are others. So we think there will be over 20,000 charging points in the private sector. So we think that within this term of government, there will be about 200,000 charging points available.
Next question, the female journalist in a black top. Thank you. I'm from Mingpao. I want to first ask the TLB Secretary. Now the new proposal will not go through Kwun Tong. In order to enhance district connectivity, would the existing system be better, having more bus routes? What studies did you do to have the current plan? Some thought it is better to connect to the East Kowloon line. Does the government think it is feasible? Also, the Chief Executive said this morning that after considering the cost, it may be lower. Is it because the government thought it was too expensive, that's why they chose the one that cost the least? the government has had a deficit for years. How will the government be able to finance these projects? Will you be using the BOT model? Would you have infrastructure that can provide services at an affordable cost? Will you have something like the Western Harbour Tunnel that will increase their tolls every year? The Environment and Ecology Bureau, we heard that there will be 3 wetland conservation parks, but now only 1 is mentioned in the policy address. For the 2 other wetland sites, what will the government do with them? If you will resume the land, why is that, and what will you do with them? Well, I'll first respond to the first 2 questions for the system in Kai Tak. As you may remember, we have started the studies many years ago, and in 2021, it was found that if the system had to be connected to the older districts, there may be some technical challenges and the cost could be quite high. Under the circumstances, in 2021, the government decided to use a multimodal system. It is not only going to be used in Kai Tak. We will also think about how to make use of it to get into Kwun Tong. We'll perhaps have some sort of subsystems to allow for such connection. Our considerations then included perhaps providing buses or other forms of vehicle transport. We have been exploring possibilities to enhance the multimodal system so as to enhance the efficiency and sustainability. We have looked at different systems. As I said, there were the 3 systems in mainland we have drawn reference from. And the works department under the TLB, whether it's the highways department or the civil engineering and development department, they will explore different systems in the mainland and overseas to see if there are any systems that match the needs of Hong Kong. Once we have reviewed the options, we think that in Kai Tak we can have one that goes from the cruise terminal to the Kai Tak MTR station. We have conducted reviews, whether it's with the technical aspects or the financial aspects of things. We can use smart and green mass transit systems to provide a mode of transport that is more sustainable and better for Kai Tak. That's why in this year's policy address, we have proposed this option. The second question was, well, I think it is a question well asked at this juncture. Whether it's the railway system or other transit systems, we really have to think about its financial viability and what it can bring about for the society. When it comes to infrastructure, from the planning to the design and construction, there is much investment. For example, for a 10 billion project, there are multiple stages. It is spread over many years in installments. So for each project, we'll look at the details, how many years the cost is going to be spread over, and how we're going to finance the project. For each project, we really have to study the options. For railway systems, there are railway plus property model. There are also other commercial models that we'll consider. So how we're going to finance each project will depend on the circumstances. Thank you. Mr. Jie, please. Well, I'm very glad you asked the question about wetland conservation park because I heard that there was public concern over the issue. In the policy address, it was said that the government would develop a large wetland conservation park in the western part of the northern metropolis, and we'll definitely make that happen because this is in the government's work plan. But the problem is that the AFCD is conducting a study, and our timetable is that it is only early next year that the study will be completed. So that's why it is not mentioned in the policy address. It is only after the study has been completed that we will announce the details. Why did we mention Sanpochu in particular? Because it is related to the development of Santin. There are some fish ponds in the boundary between the two neighborhoods. That's why we have to mention it specifically at this juncture. On wetland conservation, because this is quite a large park, that's why we have mentioned it specifically in the policy address. Next one, the female journalist in a blue top. Thank you.
I'm from Hong Kong. 01, I would like to ask about the 3 wetland parks in Northern Metropolis. Just now, the Secretary said that they will make good their words. How come in the policy address it says that they will only complete the feasibility of Sanpochu? What about the feasibility study for the other 2 wetland parks? Why do you drag your feet? How come there is no mention about the completion of the feasibilities in the policy address of the other places? Well, there were previously some site visits conducted. There were still a lot of industrial waste there. How do you ensure that the area will not be shrunk further in relation to the use of hydrogen energy? Well, over 90% of the supply is some is grey hydrogen. What is the use of green hydrogen? What's the ratio between grey, green, and blue hydrogen? Well, if you're going to procure, how much will come from the mainland? Will it be mainly green hydrogen? What about transportation? Will there be safety risks? Well, the Agriculture and Fisheries Conservation Department, AFCD, is in the process of conducting the feasibility study. The study will only be completed in the middle of next year. Will you ask about the other projects, timetable, and other matters? We can only give you further information when the feasibility study is completed. As I mentioned, that there will be development in Santin, and it's in a proximity of Sanpochu. That's why it's the first one to be launched. So when it comes to Ho Hok Wai, Lam Sang Wai, we will work in accordance with our plan. It's not a matter that we have gone back on our words. The use of hydrogen energy. There is the international trend of carbon neutrality. Countries attach a lot of importance to the use of hydrogen energy. Major automobile manufacturers attach importance to hydrogen vehicles, and they've done a lot of work in that regard. Well, there is a hydrogen supply in Hong Kong. Half of the supply in town gas is hydrogen, so there is already an existing system to supply hydrogen, because as we can just extract the hydrogen from town gas to be used in cars and other areas. There are 2 or 3 major challenges in the use of hydrogen. First, safety is down to setting of safety standards and the law. And the other one is supply of green hydrogen. Town gas supply is grey hydrogen. There are energy companies that are interested in supplying hydrogen in Hong Kong, and there is a hydrogen filling station using grey hydrogen in Hong Kong. Well, I think the use of the energy is the use of green hydrogen is only 1 out of 99%. So 1% to 99. So in the use of hydrogen, the scope of application and the volume, it depends on prices. Grey hydrogen is expensive. In other places, the use of a grey hydrogen is double the price of diesel, and there is a small supply of green hydrogen. The price is 4 times higher. So with high prices, there will be uncertainty in the scope of application and take-up rate. Next year, we will formulate a strategy on the development of use of hydrogen, because we think that renewable energy is important, or other sources is important. The first step to do is to set safety standards. The second step is to talk to prospective suppliers on storage and other matters of hydrogen. The pace of development depends on the economic side of it. Well, if there is a fast rate of dropping for hydrogen prices, perhaps development pace will pick up, and vice versa. We need to take a gradual step in an orderly manner to help the development of hydrogen in Hong Kong. The reporter there, I'm from Commercial Radio. I have a question for Mr. Lam Sai Hong on green transport. It was mentioned previously that in the runway at Kai Tak, there will be a system to connect the cruise terminal to Kwun Tong Promenade. It's not covered now. Will there be an alternative? In relation to the funding for green transport, what is the project price? You said sometimes it will only break even with railway plus property development. Under your current plan, is there any possibility of the project breaking even? In relation to East Kowloon, there will be connection to Yau Tong and Choi Hong. Are you concerned that given the high passenger capacity at Yau Tong, if you add more passengers to it, will it exceed the design capacity? Yesterday, Ms. Benedict Lin said that, well, some fish ponds will have to be filled as sand tin because they can't use the one-for-one land exchange. The government will have to use other ways for compensation. Quality is important. So would there be another plan to replace the filling of 90 fish ponds in the pipeline? Just now I mentioned that the alignment would be from cruise terminal to Kai Tak. Before 2021, we had looked into the possibility of an alignment from cruise terminal northward via the promenade to Kwun Tong. We think it is not easy to do it. So our current plan is for it to stop at the cruise terminal. For the multimodal model, we see if there are other alternatives for the connection. Under the multimodal model, there was a footbridge in part of the alignment as a connection. We'll look into it. Regarding the project cost of green transportation, it's something that we have to look into. Cost, revenue, viability. We have studied it, and we think it is viable. Next year, we will invite expressions of interest. When we have the information, we will conduct a detailed study. There was a mention of a financing committee on the financing of major development projects mentioned in the policy address. The committee will talk to different stakeholders to look at the pros and cons of different financing options before they choose a suitable one. There will be experts sitting in the committee, and I'm sure that discussions by experts on the financing options will be conducive to taking these projects forward.
Well, thank you. Yesterday, Ms. Bernadette Lin talked about that we will focus on the quality, not the size of areas. The current term government will promote a proactive approach in conservation. Before, we will zone certain sites as conservation areas where no developments can take place. But for certain developments, of course, some of those would have habitats destroyed. For example, for fish ponds, they are abandoned or partially filled to be used to store containers. If we make such areas into conservation areas, it may not be as beneficial as we would think. We want to rehabilitate certain areas that have been damaged, and we want to promote biodiversity by doing so. Through implementing such measures, we can rehabilitate damaged land and restore biodiversity in the areas by restoring the habitats. They are not necessarily proportionate to the area, site area. we may designate a smaller wetland conservation park, but if we can improve the condition of this site, the quality of this site will be better in terms of biodiversity. So that's the approach we're taking with wetland conservation in future. We're not only doing this, we're also doing in Shuttlecock under a public-private partnership model. We have resumed Shuttlecock. We will have suitable people manage the Shuttlecock site, and we want to enrich the biodiversity in the site. So we shouldn't just look at the site area. When I gave my answer, I left out the question about the Choi Hong loading question. For the East Kowloon line, apart from Choi Hong, on the east side, it goes to Yau Tong. If you have to go to Hong Kong Island, you do not have to get to Choi Hong Station first. So that should alleviate the burden on Choi Hong Station. The next question, please. The male journalist in the back. Thank you. I'm from cable TV. I want to ask about transport. The green mass transit system will be in East Kowloon Kai Tak and the Hong Shui Kiu area. According to the government's assessments, how can you strike a balance between that and commercial interests? Will you let other operators operate the system? Also, we are promoting a green transformation of enterprises. There will be facilities in 2027 in relation to EVs and hydrogen vehicles. Some bus operators have purchased electric buses. Will they have to bear the cost themselves, or will there be any subsidies for them? My last question is in relation to the subsidies provided to purchase electric taxis. Now, there are some electric taxis that are wheelchair accessible. So how does the government expect the $50 million to benefit the stakeholders of the industry? Thank you. Mr. Lam, please. Well, we have 3 mass transit systems. The East Kowloon line, the one in Kai Tak, as well as the one in Hong Shui Kiu. For these green mass transit systems in implementation, we will conduct a comprehensive review of its impact to the existing transport network to see how we can better serve the residents in the districts concerned. We can't say for sure at the moment, of course, because the construction alone would take several years, and then we will monitor the situation of the existing traffic network and the services provided by bus and minibus operators, and then we'll implement mitigation measures. These mass transit systems, 2 of them, we will invite potential operators to submit expressions of interest. If MTR is interested, they can definitely submit a proposal. If bus operators think they are capable of operating such services, perhaps they can partner up with other operators to provide such services. We are more than welcome to have them submit their proposals. We haven't decided whether the MTRCL will be operating the system. Mr. Jie, please. You asked about hydrogen buses or new energy buses, whether it uses electricity or hydrogen as fuel. We have a roadmap. We will consider when we are converting buses to electric buses, whether we need to provide some form of subsidies. We will definitely take that into consideration. But we have yet to have the roadmap. That's why I won't talk about the details at the moment. We are still formulating the roadmap at this moment in relation to barrier-free taxis. It is part of our strategy. Right now, we have a 100 dedicated loan guarantee scheme for those who wish to switch to e-taxis. People can also make use of the new energy transport fund to purchase taxis. But, of course, we want to have wheelchair accessible taxis as well because they are more expensive. We have earmarked $50 million to subsidize the procurement of wheelchair accessible taxis so as to provide extra support to owners who wish to switch to such taxis. That's it for today's press conference. Thank you.